14 actions per team. This is the new realistic standard for Gale Force. We are in the action meta, and we have units like Duo Leon and Sather taking them away, and Winter Edelgard and Bridal Sharena adding them. So we're going to go over what that means for the current meta, as well as some other things that are going on. But my question is, how are you feeling about the action economy meta right now? Where do you think this is going to take us, and what do you think is next? But let's take a slight detour into the bonus war. We have units like Garrick, Asker, and Valentine Myrrh who are adding them in, and then we have Tina, Duo Thor, and now Nergal and Loki taking them away. Nowhere is this bigger than Light and Dark Season just because of Loki. And let's look at some replays. So first up, we have Ike, and the big thing that I want to point out and why he's so good on defense is because he doesn't need all of these other bonuses. He can do just fine without them. So the real thing that the bonus war is limiting is older units without good preference weapons. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I definitely like it when I can take my OG Sharena and just deck her out and go therefore and conquer. There are a few things you can do though, and one of them is Divine Veinstone. One of the powerful things about this is you can't take it away. It also takes out AoEs, which are the main way you take out Ike, so they are all over the meta. Which brings me to Mythic Loki, and this is an interesting unit because of all the debuffs that she really brings. The problem that I will bring up is that you have to have over 3 bonuses for her to really be able to take them away. That is a big thing, but not if you have a prime skill. If you have a prime skill, those just dropped off the face of the planet in Light Season because of how easy it is to take those bonuses away. The other thing I'll add is any kind of God Sword right now is going to have huge amounts of trouble because Ike is so much better than all of the others, and every team is designed to take him out. Back to Mythic Loki though, you can see I have her bumping up a little bit, not a lot. I do think she's a valuable asset, but the best teams she's on, much like Nergal, are these hero balls, the old Katria balls. And we're about to talk about why those aren't doing as well. Nowhere in Aether Raids is it more clear to see the action economy at work than in Astra and Anima season, and that's because of Sather. Gale Force teams can have so many more actions than their opponents, and it's kind of incredible. Let's take a quick stop though and look at how saviors are doing. Now, what I have here is Gatekeeper, and I know this is a really weird detour, but I'm about to show you why I think that saviors in general are just not doing that well and are going to struggle for a bit. But I will say that units like Gatekeeper make things a lot easier for teams that rely on any kind of warping shenanigans, as my Rally Trap does. Now, being able to pick off these units one at a time is incredibly powerful, and as we've seen, the best thing about cav lines, which are so heavily in use, is that you can get a lot of overlap. By limiting movement on both offense and defense, Gatekeeper can be incredibly powerful though. Let's take another look at saves, and the thing I want to point out here, I know you guys are going to get onto me for picking on Ashnard. His Refine is very good. The thing that I am worried is the Refines right now are not keeping up with the preference weapons, and it's not close. There are definitely some exceptions. We're gonna talk about Mythic Dogger, who got a very good refine, but by and large, refines are struggling quite a bit. There are still select cases where you can definitely use Ashnard. I know the Soren balls that people are using definitely have him as a nice near save, but again, there's that word savior, and you just saw Byleth get absolutely smacked. Saviors right now are very, very far below the level of nukes that we have. Because of this, it means that essentially they've become like Summoner Duels units, where it takes one hit and they're just the buffer to keep the team away from all of your other more critical units. So we're gonna see a Sharena replay, and I know you guys are astounded that it took me this long to show off my plus 10 Sharena. But what I wanna point out is, even if your unit is just a buffer, because there's not an action limit in Aether Raids, it means that it can take 2 units to take out your target, the savior and whoever is underneath the savior. And honestly, you're just fine with that because your team has 12 other actions to go through. The other thing you're seeing here is that Sharena easily dispatches both Brave Edelgard and Ike. That's the kind of thing we're going to start seeing, with nukes just being so much more powerful than any kind of tank we see. You can see a lot of the same thing with Duel Leon, and with teams defending so hard against melee Gale Force teams right now. Ranged Gale Force teams are absolutely flourishing. But back to the main point, and that's that in any sort of player phase routine here, you have so many more actions than the opposing team that it's easy to be able to overrun them. What I think is going to be happening in the fairly near future is we're going to see a bump in the power level of saviors. This could come in a lot of different ways, and one of them is Hardy Fighter 4, which would be terrifying, but just be on the lookout. Chaos Season is always kind of the grab bag. But right now, you live or die with Ike. Ike is good on defense, Ike is good on offense. You have to have some way to take him out, like we've already talked about. It's an even bigger deal in Chaos Season though, because you don't have the additional stats, and so your preference weapon is such a big part of how you interact. Let's look at some replays. First we have Ursula, and this is such an interesting unit. You'll notice that in this replay, she's being paired with Winter Edelgard as kind of a hit and run squad, which is really interesting. But again, the thing with Winter Edelgard is she doesn't quite have the power to take out units like she used to. So you can go soften the team up with Ursula and then have Winter Edelgard as a follow-up unit. And as much sacrilege as that sounds, this is a role that she's very good at. It's still very important to note that she is definitely losing power, and that is across the board. It is getting harder and harder to take units out with her, so be on the lookout for your Edelgard side grade or replacement, or the fact that you may just have to run two different Gale Force teams, one AoE and one Winter Edelgard. The other thing I want to talk about is just how amazing Robin is. Duo Young Robin is an incredible unit and just good in all modes. You can see what we're looking at here is the extra actions and the extra extended range that Duo Robin is going to be able to get you. By putting Hush Spectrum on the rest of the team, it means that folks can survive and actually get some chip damage on Ike or whoever the opposing tank is. Although realistically, we both know it's going to be Ike. The other thing I want to bring up is this is the mode that I like Embla in most. I'm having trouble getting her slotted into most teams, to be honest with you. For the most part, I like that support unit to be some sort of dancer, but she will be great as a replacement for Valoria, who I have been told across the board is definitely losing a step. It's getting harder for Valoria to be able to take out opposing units, even if they are not the saviors. And you can see that with any sort of Lagoo's Friend 4 nukes. Those are very tanky nukes that are not glass cannons that oftentimes take multiple hits to take out. Yes, you generally have those actions, but it's nicer to have a unit that can just flat take them out the first time. And Embla in a lot of cases is that, especially when compared to Valoria. So let's go over the archetypes, and the first thing I want to talk about is tanks in general. And I had a little bit of trouble here because honestly, Ike is doing just fine, but every other tank has just fallen off dramatically. You're seeing a Winter Byleth replay here, and it's just sad. But the fact is, 95% of tanking teams are using Ike. So because of that, I've got them standing pat. We're not seeing anything additional that's helping Ike, and we are seeing some things that might be able to counter him, but in the hands of a good player, Ike is still amazing, and tank teams in general are still the standard. We've talked about this a little bit, but in general, hero balls are going down. We will need better saviors for them to get better. They are too susceptible to player phase right now, and they are easy pickings for a lot of these very strong units. But again, we're waiting for the better saviors to make them better. As far as hit and run goes, I do have them peaking up a bit. They do have some interesting toys in Embla, and we've had a lot of units like Brave Golvig who can get multiple actions. In Chaos Season here, you're seeing Mythic Golvig do the job. The thing that we've been talking about still holds true though, and that's as long as saviors are weaker, things like hit and run teams are going to be very, very nice and easy to execute those kind of strategies. We've talked about Gale Force, and what you're seeing here is a replay that should be very good against Winter Edelgard and just isn't. They set up the traps just right, but they weren't able to beat Guidance 4 plus Smite. That's a very, very powerful strategy. This is why we're starting to see glass cannons fall off a bit. If they would have had a unit like Nergal in there, that would have stopped the progress of Edelgard and would have had a lot more trouble taking this team out. Still, Gale Force has gotten a ton of toys in Sharena and Embla and a sea of other units that make those teams so strong, and they are probably the strongest archetype right now. Last but not least, I have the current iteration of the Cav line, which has 2 Cavs. One of them is Freyr. I mean, this is what we're dealing with right now, which is interesting, but you have units like a Green who extends the range of infantry units, and also we have Gatekeeper who helps keep out player phase teams, and the weird one, the weirdest thing that helped out Cav lines is, of course, Emblem Ike. You slap him on there and he can be an excellent beacon and add some bulk and again stop units like Winter Edelgard. Okay, so we don't normally talk about Arena because honestly there's not a whole lot of movement in the meta, but if as many people summon on Emblem Ike as I think there are going to be, I think he's going to be a serious problem in Arena, and he's actually where I worry about him the most by debalancing things. The problem is it is so hard for GHBs and Tempest Trials to be able to take him out. And it means units like Cyril have a serious drop in their power and their usage. You're going to have a way to take this unit out. Is this a Sharena replay? Yes, it is. Speaking of Sharena, and another glorious Sharena replay. Now, this one we're actually going to talk about her and the number of actions that you can get on an Arena team right now, which is just incredible. We've got the pseudo refresher with Crom, we've got the self Gale Forcer in Ninian, and we've got the 4 actions from Sharena. But the bigger thing here, of course, is being able to counter Ike. And a lot of the newer units, a lot of the newer duos can do that. What it means is that expensive units can do it, but free-to-play units can't. There are a few exceptions, and these are things that you're going to watch out for. Flowguard 4 is one of these things that you are going to want if you're a Cav fan, because it can help so much with that scowl in taking out Emblem Ike. I'm going to show a Mavier build here in just a bit that's incredible, but very expensive. And that's the problem you're going to see. Taking out Emblem Ike is very expensive. Last up, we have Summoner Duels, and honestly, there's not just a ton going on in Summoner Duels, which is interesting. This is one of those, the more things change, the more they stay the same. You get the new fodder in, everyone completely rekits their units, and it just keeps on circling through. I saw so many Lagoo's Friend 4 teams, it was incredible. I fully expect Attack Speed XL as well as Flowguard 4 to be parts, if not whole things with people's teams. We'll see how that goes. The 2 additions that you do want to look for is Dogger and Nergal. Both of these units are very good. We'll go over builds for them later, but I want to look at replays, particularly with Nergal. This is a replay from Hábiluca. Thank you so much for showing this to me, and I'll make sure to leave a link. Amazing FEHtuber. I don't suggest you use Nergal as a raid boss. That's just not something you really want to do. But this does demonstrate how tanky he actually is, which is nice as a frontliner for your teams, especially if you're using this as a frontliner who can also attack and take away the other team's bonuses. It makes him a very powerful asset. The other thing that it does is the way he functions is so good against raid bosses that in general I have them ticking down, and that includes Ike. Now, if I had included all of the other raid bosses, they would be way down, and Ike is just obviously a little bit down. But we do have a lot of tools against them. It is not something that IS really wants you to do right now. They don't want you to take one unit, stack all the bonuses on them, and take off. I still see folks do it, but it is a much harder than it used to be. The last thing I'll mention is Young Robin is amazing. The only reason they're not ticking up more is because they're incredible and they already were so high, but we're finding some new interesting uses for them. One of those is actually Ruse, which just cracks me up, but this is a very good unit, and if you wanted to make this a merge project, I can't tell you how many times I've said it, but this would be a very good one. And here we have Sharena, because of course we do. Sharena is very good, but I think she is going to be more of a tech option in Summoner Duels than a full-on contributor that you build your team around. For Cav teams though, she is going to be a very, very good addition, especially since she can take out so many of the saviors and omni tanks that are out there right now. The last thing I'll bring up is that Dogger is really good at extending range and is also a very bulky unit, but the reason that Dogger is so high on that list there is because she can be on one of those high threat range Cav teams and also bring Canto control. So you've got a really nice support and attack unit that helps in a lot of different ways. As you can see with Sharena, Canto control is going to be very critical in a lot of the upcoming seasons for Summoner Duels, as if that was any different than what it was before. But still, it's very, very nice to have Canto control. All right, we've made it all the way to the builds. I promised you Mavier. Here he is. This is at least 3 very expensive units have died for this build. What I will tell you is this does kill Emblem Ike though, which is kind of neat. But as we've been talking about in the Discord, the problem is if you've spent this much on a unit, you probably could have just merged up a duo unit and been better off. But if you like Mavier, this is something you can do. What it really shows as an example is how Flowguard 4 can help you. And Mavier takes no damage when initiating into Ike because Ike depends on his special, and that's why that is so powerful. All of the other things are just trying to build up enough attack to be able to chip at Ike so that you can take him all the way down. If you go this route, you can take him all the way down in one go as long as no quarter is charged. For most people though, that's going to take several different turns. Next we have the Lagoo's Friend 4 couple here, and I like Lagoo's Friend 4 on support units more than I like it on Omni tanks. The reason being, it's not enough. It's just if Ike can't stay alive, then the unit you are using probably dies. There are exceptions, definitely Desert Altina is very good, and even Sita in some cases can be very, very good. But for the most part, Lagoo's Friend 4 is best on support units. We talked about how tanky Nergal was, where, I mean, basically Winter Edelgard just tings off of him, and it's glorious to see. Similar things happen with Dogger, although she doesn't have quite the same amount of bulk. But when you add in Godlike Reflexes and Guard from Earth Wind Boost 3 and an additional Guard Echo, because I don't know why I put that there. But this is a very powerful unit and one that I will most likely be putting up in Binding Worlds because it's an excellent target for that. If you're interested in other support units, I have a tier list out for them right now. I put a lot of work into that and it was a ton of fun. Go check that out. Members, you are amazing. Thank you so much for all that you do. Take care and schedule an appointment with your FEHologist real soon.